Should have got that for a picture.
Hey, there's a brand up. Did you go this week?
I went yesterday.
You decorated? How'd you do? Do that trip to Texas?
Yeah, I know.
How was Texas? It was good.
I had a good time.
It's good. Mom said that they had to like change your flight a couple times because you were selling.
Yeah, we had to go make these flights for Dallas. We're down medical. We got a
So from Dallas home, we're jumping out of
Tallahassee.
Which airport did you go to Texas?
Austin.
So you didn't go to the.
Didn't go to the White.
There's two of them.
We went to go.
There's Houston and Houston Hobby. Hobby's a little small.
I don't know which one we did. You knew you were in Texas. They have the big old chandeliers and stars right below.
They're proud of their state.
Oh, yeah.
A little No, you're not. What's that?
Yeah, you just let me know. This week?
Now we're in.
I'll get it. He's thinking.
He's an athlete.
You think? Maybe a little bit?
Play a lot more. They don't have to reach for your runs, but you got one of their kids over there.
And you never know what you're gonna find.
Yes, I could.
That's a fun place to go.
Are you an Avengers fan? Really? Avengers and Harry Potter. There's no. Were you ever in Harry Potter? Ish.
Oh, yeah.
What about like the Twilight stuff? Did she do Twilight?
We read Twilight.
I watched the first 17 of those books. They're always better. I wasn't that much into the story. I went for my wife's age. Yeah.
I wouldn't go to
Well, she got anything to throw at Mark back there? She got anything like real heavy, a blunt object to throw? How about a songbook? Some songbook after. Yeah. I know, but I'm up here. I feel pretty safe. That's why I asked him to do it. That's why I asked Bill to punch John Henry. I'll get somebody else to do it, so I stay safe. You think you still got it? Think you can still put one out of the baseball field? You don't think so? It's like riding a bike. Hey, just so everybody knows, I electrocuted John Henry this week. It was a good week. Good week.
Not for you.
Not for John, but it was a great week for me. I ain't electrocuted anybody yet. It was first. Of course it'd be him. I just wanted y'all to know he's alive. I made sure he was alive back there. He's not dead. All right, anybody we want to pray for in particular before we jump off this morning? Me? I know, I need all I got. Miss Margie, what you got?
My youngest sister, Kathy,
Okay.
that crushed her leg last year, has broken it again.
How'd she do it this time?
She didn't crush it this time, it just broke in one spot. And the metal plates that was from there from last time saved it from breaking all the way through the skin.
Oh.
But she's gotta wear a boot for about 6 days.
So she heard what you did and said, "Oh, anything you can do, I can do better." And
That's it.
are y'all like fighting for family sympathy? Like, is there somebody else that y'all are trying to? We don't one up her, please. Stay away from the horse.
Oh, I think so.
You know, Aubrey
I
can
don't
do
have
that.
to go through the fence anymore, last week and everything.
We'll be praying for her for sure. Glad to have that answered prayer. Have some of y'all back with us safely and soundly, Rando included. Anything else? Oh, be mindful of the Maley family. Just kind of going through the is what it is. I don't know. Are we allowed to? I mean, you know, they're staying away for safety's sake, and Joel probably for sure, and just be mindful of them. Kind of recover and stuff. Anything else? Shane's doing announcements, so you can hit him up in between. Yes.
Mary's MRI, Miss Mary's MRI. They got the, it's not, the cancer's not,
In the brain.
yeah, moved or whatever. And, the doctor seems to think that maybe it's a couple more weeks with the training. So what they're hoping with it, they don't, that's their best guess.
Okay. I saw Jan already had it in the bulletin. You were on it. You were on it. Thank you for that bulletin, by the way.
We moved to Elizabeth.
I don't want to talk about that. Why would I want to be excited or talk about that even a little bit? I think she could commute. That's just I don't know why you can't commute to Tallahassee. It's not even that far. So I don't want to pray for that at all. Not even a little bit.
Safety.
Huh? Her safety? No, I want to pray for her to get scared enough she moves back home. Like, I don't want anything to get hurt, but like, I might just get John Henry to dress up in all black with a mask and scare her. You know what? I just need to live at home. That's we're gonna arrange that. Then we don't have to worry about it. If somebody comes to you with a mask, I'm just telling you that was a joke. Don't be like, "Oh, Mr. Dan, it's just you." Like, run.
Don't be like that.
Okay? It's just Mr. Dan. Why didn't you run? Y'all ready to talk about genealogy of Jesus this morning? I'm ready. I'm ready. Mr. Mark, you want to kick us off with a word of prayer? Can I pick on you this morning?
Let's all pray. Lord, we thank you for this day that you've given us. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come out once again and study your word. Lord, be with all the teachers, be with Dan as he brings a lesson before us this morning. And he will have a happy recollection of the things he's prepared. Lord, be with all the other teachers as they do the same and try to bring a lesson before. Lord, be with all those who have been mentioned here as sick and needing of our prayers. Lord, you know how to deal with them and heal them if it be thy will. Lord, go on out through this service with us. Prepare us for worship service that we coming for. Pray all these things in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. All right, in Matthew 1, we're going to obviously be going back to the Old Testament, but I just want to kind of, did anybody get a chance, or maybe you've already probably done it before, to kind of read through Matthew 1 and the genealogy and just kind of highlight in your mind or actually circle the names that you'd be more familiar with? Let's just do that kind of random shotgun style. As you get to Matthew 1, just kind of as you peek through, you know, those first 17 verses, what names jump out at you? If you say Jesus, Tyler Slaughter, I'm going to kick you out of Bible class.
David. David.
You got David. That's the very first one. We already talked about him, so we got David. Abraham, all right, we covered him already. The first few we got because Genesis is pretty thorough on some of them. Which other ones right there at the beginning? Okay, all right. Perez, we really didn't go in depth on him. We read the section about him being born and some of that, but we really didn't go into depth on him. But that will come up today. Isaac and Jacob we've covered. What else did you said another one at the end? Tamar, that's the one we studied not too long ago. All right.
Rahab.
Rahab, all right, that's another one that jumps out. Anything else in that section? Any other name? Rahab's where we're going this morning, just so you know. Boaz, that story, and it's just interesting, kind of says Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. So we're going to get into that some this morning. Why is Boaz? Okay, that's where we're going to head with that one. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was. Anybody want to guess where we're going to go after Rahab? We're going to get that story. You kind of get both of them. That's a powerful story. All right. And then that kind of rounds us back to, in verse 6, you get Jesse and David, which those two we'd probably be a little bit familiar. Now, rest of them, what do you got? Might be one or two that still ring the bell. Solomon you got, and just a foreshadowing, but how is it worded about Solomon there in verse 6?
Mother.
Whose mother was Bathsheba. Or do some of your verses say whose mother had been? So why say it that way? That's more than just, oh, Bathsheba was his mom. No, we're going to say it as whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Let's just put a big exclamation point, a highlighter over the family, the skeletons in the family closet, right?
And LT just translates the widow of your mother.
Yeah, well, see, and they're cleaning it up. And I like it salty.
I don't even say nothing about
It just says Bathsheba?
No, it just says Uriah.
Okay.
The wife of Uriah.
The wife. But see, that still is highlighting she wasn't David's. All right. Now, all the eyes and acts and rams, you got any of them in there that stick out? There might be a few, depending on how Bible nerds you are, as Bill and I like to say. Who's that? Someone said
Jehoshaphat.
jumping. I was waiting for that. If you're a jumping fan, jumping Jehoshaphat, jumping one. I've been lingering too long with the water hole, man. I can't get that out of my head. Isaiah, you might, that one might come up. Hezekiah would probably be a little bit more familiar in chapter 10, in verse 10 there. Manasseh, what do you know about that guy? Bad dude. And that's just, it's so unfortunate that not that he didn't earn it, but that's a great story. In fact, of the kings of all that section, I can't wait till we get to him. It's going to be, you'll change your mind. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, yes. But boy, does he earn. Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. Anything else jump out there? I knew it was coming. I was waiting for it. Okay, all right. That's still a little bit better than just giving. Y'all know the joke that I told all the young people about it. If you're in a Bible class, a kid's Bible class, and don't know the answer, 98% of the time the answer is Jesus. And you can ask, who's your favorite Old Testament character? All right. Anything else? Any other names? You got Mary? You're not gonna legally leave out the husband? All right. You can get him in there. All right. Got Joseph. All right. I just kind of wanted to see that. So where we're going for today is, it's really the line of Perez. I'm going to read some verses about that, but then you've got verse 5, Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. So Bible trivia, if we're going to study about Rahab, where are we headed? What book of the Bible? For Rahab?
Rahab?
Yeah, see? Mm-hmm. I almost did the same thing. March 7 times round. And then we sing his name like 4 times. Joshua. All right, go to Joshua, chapter 1. We'll read together. Well, actually, were in my head this week as I was preparing for this one. Because we could just skip to the Rahab part, but man, there's just so much meat here that's, I don't feel like I have to be in a hurry. Is that all right? You told me that last time. Like, why are we in a hurry to get done with that story? Go ahead and, let it marinate a little bit. All right. background. I think it helps us put us where they are. If it's the book of Joshua, how does Joshua 1 verse 1 open? That's a pretty significant time marker. Moses, what do you say?
After the death.
Why is that going to be fairly monumental for them? Big time. Big time. And there's even some things that are set up in this story about how those walls of Jericho and now the priests are carrying the Ark of the Covenant on their way when they cross the Jordan. Anybody? This is Joshua's story when the priests have the Ark and they cross the rivers of Jordan. Does anybody know what happens when that happens? The waters. Why would he do that? Why would he have? And that's kind of like, did that have to happen to get the Ark across? Why would you do that now in Joshua's story, have water stop and priests able to walk across on dry land? And so why do that? Say it again.
What was the depth of the water?
Okay, but like I think there's got to be a bigger symbolic reason. It's not necessarily necessary. I think there's something symbolic.
Remind them of what Moses had done for them.
All right, what's the Moses connection, John Henry?
Reminds them that God still got them.
Okay, if you know, because think about it, when you've got your leader that's been your leader so long, and there's one like Moses. I mean, that's even a prophecy about Jesus the Messiah. I'm going to bring someone else like Moses is a big deal. And when Moses delivers them, what happens? The water's parted in the Red Sea. And so it's maybe not quite as magnetic, although the Jordan ain't nothing to slouch at, but it's not the Red Sea. But it's almost like a tip of the cap of, I still got you, because here's Moses' and God even says, and I kind of asked all that to say, God even says, I'm going to do something to exalt you in the eyes of the people. And then that's kind of, so that you got that piece. Moses is passing. Sweet hour of prayer, which we sang not too long ago, that fourth verse. Where do we leave Moses? On the top of Mount, remember the song? From Mount such and such lofty height, I view my home and take my flight. Mount Pisgah is where we left him. What's Moses allowed to do? I'm going to let you see it. I'm going to let you, you got him this far, and then God himself buries him. And so now we've got changing it up. What's going to be Joshua's primary role? All of this is in the Rahab story, but we got to get some background here. We don't just want to plunge right in it because it makes what her story is. What's going to be Joshua's role? You said conquer Canaan, and you said take them. I mean, so Moses is much more of a, not that Moses doesn't have to do his own thing, but he's a little bit more of a shepherd type leader. He delivers them. He is the miracle worker of the plagues. Joshua's kind of a little bit more of, you see him a little bit different?
Yeah, he's the man. He was the one that stood up before the people and told, him and Caleb was only two that stood up against all the others that spied out the land. And he says, for y'all do what you want to do. For me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord.
That's right.
And he would put the Lord first in everything he did.
And so that's a good, because that's going to come up about what they do with the soldiers on the way in. Joshua is part of, him and two other guys survive all that. Going back to the spy thing, what happened to the rest of them? It's even going to be mentioned here about all of those of military age, Now, before they go to battle, he has them circumcised before they go to battle because they hadn't been, because they're all the children. Remember the age? Why was there an age cutoff? Why is it a lot of them weren't allowed to enter the promised land?
The disbelief when they spy out the land.
Unbelief. And so he's got now this group that he's leading in. It's hard to just jump into the Rahab story without saying there's been a lot of history to get. Where have they been delivered from? They're not long out of Egypt. Now they've had to wander longer than was planned because of this unbelief. And so now we are primed for the taking of the promised land. But see, what was it? And I have to do this because it comes up in the Rahab story. What was it that allowed God to get them out of Egypt? We talked about the Red Sea, but what came before all that? Plague. Rattle them off? Anybody know a few of them? Ooh, Bible trivia. Ooh, Bible trivia. You can sing the song if you need to. At least you can sing it for you. Do you remember that song? She's the one that's got like a song for this. She didn't go like that. They're water to blood. All right, we're gonna do like my process of elimination here. All right, we got water to blood. Gnats. Frogs. I thought you said horses. I was like, what? Locusts. Death of the firstborn. There's some pretty big, powerful stuff. All right. You say darkness, total darkness, hail. I mean, just big manifestations of the power of God. That's going to come up about like, why would Rahab make the massive leap of faith that she makes? All that's good. I just need you to kind of have that in your brain where we are in history. They've just gotten out of hundreds of years in Egypt. God has shown up in a mighty way, and you might say, well, where's he been for the last 400? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like when John the Baptist kind of rolls on the scene. There's been the voice of the Lord has not been heard in quite the same way, and now all of a sudden John the Baptist bursts on the scene. Well, in Egypt, it's like, where's God been? And now he mightily burst on the scene in all of these places. He's getting his people out. He's getting them to Canaan's land. I'm on my way. What does that mean? What is Canaan? We call it the promise. That's where he's getting them. So Joshua is going to be, and there's there's so much, we don't have time to cover all of it, but it's like, just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And there's this repeated phrase of be strong and of good courage. I got you, and so Joshua is very much a military guy, and we are coming to take the promised land. The battle's going to belong to the Lord, and if he could use plagues to get them out of Egypt, do you reckon he can win battles to get them this promised land? They are coming, and the first story, the Rahab story, is a fairly impressive military story that shows it wasn't about them. I mean, you got all of this is thrown in. I saw a hand. Yeah.
Does everything that you just said, all the people have heard that too?
That's right.
The fear in the hearts of the people in Jericho.
This is fairly fresh at Jericho. You can fast forward all the way to the time of David with the Philistines, and even, how many ever hundreds of years that is later, the Philistines say, y'all remember what their God did in Egypt? Like, that story had made the rounds of that area. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, hey, let's just not forget about it. I mean, that's a while back, but it left an impression. It left an impression. It's super fresh in the story of Jericho that we're about to get to. All right. Any other kind of thoughts about this kind of this background? We got a new leader. We're going to take promised land. God's got them out. God is going to give them the victory. I'm skipping over to chapter 2 then, because really chapter 1 is God giving Joshua the confidence to go be the leader, and God comes and says, "Be strong and of good courage. Be strong and of good courage." So much that, and I love it. I mean, it's a neat story about even the people saying, "You be strong and of good courage." They're kind of accepting him as their leader, and even kind of they answer him and say in verse 17, right before you get to chapter 2, "As we obeyed Moses, so we'll obey you. Only may the Lord be with you as he was with Moses," kind of thing, which God's going to give them some signs to confirm that Joshua is my man. And that's where we get that cross. It's a little wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, Joshua can part water too.
A lot of the people probably thought the promise died.
That's got to be part of it. He was such a pivotal. He's the one that could go up on the mountain and talk to God. No, everybody else was kind of scared to do that. He's the guy whose face glowed because it is the law of Moses. You are exactly right. He's the guy. There would be some trepidation going into this battle, and that's why God comes. And even for Joshua himself, how do you follow that guy? You know what I mean? How do you follow that guy? And God says, "Be strong and good courage. Be strong and good courage." And then the people say, "Be strong and good courage." And just like we had Moses, which that might not be. Well, just the same way we were with Moses, we were with you. Well, there was a couple of times they were ready to stone Moses too. So, people are what they are. All right, so all of that brings us to chapter 2. I couldn't just plunge into chapter 2 without, you need to kind of know where they are, where the people are, where the people of Jericho are. So let's read some then. Let's read chapter 2. I mean, it's really 1 through 5. We're not going to read all of that, but let's, for the sake of just kind of introduction, let's just read all of chapter 2. I mean, we'll get that in your head and we'll talk about as much as we can. 24 verses. Who all is willing to read? See that? You like that? I almost said wants to. Who all's willing to read? You're training me. I'm learning. All right. You got 1 through 6. Who else? 7 through 12. 8 through. No, 7 through 12. 13 through 18. 18, and then he's got 19 through 24. I had it. I was going to get there. Y'all know math is not my strong point, right? I once boldly proclaimed that there were like 350 days in a year. You know what I mean? So just so you know, numbers, not really my thing. There are, just not only. So there's some. Hey, that makes me feel better, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you. I needed that. All right. I have no idea if you guys know what you're supposed to read or when you're supposed to read, but at some point, by the grace of God, we will get through chapter 2. How about that? All right? I don't even know who's first. Are you first?
Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp at Acacia Grove. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. So the 2 men set out and came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. But someone told the king of Jericho, some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, bring out the men who have come into your house, for they have come here to spy out the whole land. Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left the town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them. Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath bundles of flax she had laid out.
So the men pursued them on the road to the Jordan to the ford, and as soon as those who were pursuing them had gone out, they shut the gate. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts melted, and no courage remained in any man any longer because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now therefore, please swear to me by the Lord, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you also may deal kindly with my father's household and give me a pledge of truth.
All right, 13.
Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the men had said to her, this oath you made us swear will not be binding on us, unless when we enter the land, you have tied the scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house.
So it shall be that whoever goes outside the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we will be guiltless. And whoever is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if a hand is laid on him. And if you tell this business of ours, then we will be free from your oath which you made us swear. Then she said, according to your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet cord in the window. They departed and went to the mountain, and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers sought them all along the way, but did not find them. So the 2 men returned, descended from the mountain, and crossed over. And they came to Joshua the son of Nun and told him all that had befallen them. And they said to Joshua, truly the Lord has delivered all the land into our hands, for indeed all of the inhabitants of the country are faint-hearted because of us.
All right. What jumps out at you? There's multiple little parts. What grabs you?
Rahab was hard.
Okay.
Relief.
Did anybody cringe when you get verse 1? They come to spy out the land. Where's the first place they go? But is there some wisdom to that? It's an open door. I mean, if there's anybody that's going to open the door to you, I mean, that one's, there's some possible strategy there.
It's not suspicious that two people go in there.
It's not suspicious that even foreign men would go there. So we're going to say.
That's what I'm going to get to. It wouldn't be suspicious for somebody, because people goes and comes all the time.
And also, where is her house? That we got that little detail later on. Her house is part of. So it's a natural entry point. I don't read too much, and some people try to read too much, I think, into of them going there. I think that's just they're looking for an open door. That's an open door that would not be suspicious for them to arrive there. Right? So that would grab you a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Besides her faith, I'm not really surprised but impressed that she's smart enough to make a deal with them.
Okay.
She knew that they were in debt to her, and I think it's smart that she asked for an oath.
Hey, I did you a favor.
You gotta give me a favor.
Why would you not? I mean, that maybe shows some of her cunning, some of her wisdom. I mean, she's part of.
She knew that they were going to destroy.
She's had to negotiate with fellows before. I mean, let's just put it that way. She's negotiated with men before.
But she knew they were going to destroy the city already.
That's right.
One of picking the place to go is an easy way to escape.
Okay.
Had they been in the inner city, it would have been harder for them to get away once they were sent out in search for.
So I'm just barely inside the city wall to spy out, but it's also, if her house is part of that city wall, obviously it's pretty easy to yeah, absolutely. What were you going to say?
She knows of what happened in Egypt. So you'd have to assume everyone knows.
It seems like she said we're all melting in fear.
People in their daily course, that they're still talking about it. It kind of makes you wonder, is that the reason why there were so many plagues? I mean, if it had been one plague, would they all still remember 40-something years later?
So I want to scratch that a little bit. I want to scratch that itch a little bit, because one part of me, it's absolutely natural. 10 plagues, of course, you're going to. Pharaoh saw all of those same plagues, and yes, it rattled him enough to let the people go, but then what did he do? At the end, what led to his demise? He loads up, and it didn't impress him enough that he's not ready to go kill them all again. Now that leads to his demise. I mean, go back to Lazarus comes back from the dead. I mean, that's pretty powerful. The whole world knows that he's going to stink and everything. He's been gone a certain amount of days. And instead of it going, wow, there's a certain group of Pharisees that it says, what? We're going to kill this guy. Not wow. So it's kind of like these signs and wonders are, but it's not foolproof. Why? It might have taken 10. Well, we know it. Part of the reason it took 10, because Pharaoh hardens his heart, and then kind of comes back around, and it's kind of like, well, God hardens his heart, and sometimes he hardens his own heart. I mean, he kind of even vacillates. Yeah, I'm going to let you go. No, I'm not going to let you go. No, I'm going to let you go. No. Signs and wonders, as powerful as they are, didn't necessarily ironclad cause faith and belief. It's there enough for people to melt with fear, but it's not a guarantee. Kevin, where are you going to go?
Pharaoh's somewhat separated from it too in his position.
Okay.
He may not have suffered as bad as the people, and that may be why he kept requiring more.
Sure.
And side note, I always ask myself, how many would it take for me to understand what's going on?
So I want that, because it is an obvious point of, yes, there would be a wow factor. Obviously, there was a wow factor. It lasts all the way to the time of David, but it's not always a guarantee of hearing that sign or whatever. Do you really? Otherwise, why fight at all? Why didn't all the nations just lay down? No, there still had to be a battle. Where are you going to go?
That's another thing that God said everybody should know Him just through creation alone.
Okay.
And Rahab could probably see all these plagues wasn't natural things. And it too was nature itself too. And God used that to show the Pharaoh and all them people that he's in control. Rahab has heard these stories and all this and seen them come in and says, oh, their God done this for them. He's gonna do it again. So, it helped give her the faith she needed.
Well, and without email and telephone, what has happened has had time to spread. At least how long? It's had at least how long to spread?
At least 40 years, because everybody had to wonder.
Okay, I'm about to say, so it's had time. It's not like boom, boom. It's had time for that story. I mean, I would guess in this day and time, when a Pharaoh died, it would be, that message would travel. And especially when he dies in this kind of way. So that, like I said, that story has gone out. You got the king of Jericho finds out, hey, some men have come. So he goes to investigating. Now there's a little part you got to whittle on, and I don't have all the answers for, but anything that kind of like a little bit about this story. Does she lie? She doesn't tell the whole truth. No, she lies. I mean, there ain't no. You can't. That's what I'm saying. You try to. She lies, and that kind of. But
you see it in all the great stories of the Old Testament. Lies, Moses.
Did we have sin in Abraham's story?
Yeah.
Did he lie at all?
Yeah.
At least twice. At least that we know of that's recorded twice. Jacob ever lied? So stealing the birthright was a lie. The whole thing, straight up lied to him that, yeah, that's me. The Lord let me get this game. I mean, it's in every one of them. So it's okay. Don't let it shock you about her, because it's not like all some of these other names we've covered haven't had the same name. I've got a point that I'm going to come back and make about that. So I'm going to file that way. John Henry, where are you going to go with that?
Might be wrong or whatever, but the good Lord would control all of lives.
Say the good Lord what?
He's in control of all those lives.
Well, and if there's any kind of grace I try to give to this, here's one of them. I understand lying is wrong, right? I mean, that's easy. But do you have to tell people who are after your life? Do I have to hand you the sword and whack my head off? You know what I mean? There's a couple other Bible stories about where, Samuel doesn't exactly tell where somebody is, and, it doesn't lie, but doesn't tell the whole thing. I don't know. I'll just tell you I don't have an answer. Where I go with it is, even in her weak, here's where I was going to go with your point. Saving faith, is it perfection? Or is it what saves her and her household? What is she credited for? Faith. Faith enough to act. Now, the way that she acted, what choice does she have, though?
The story would have ended. Oh, yeah, they're on the road.
Exactly.
She didn't lie to cover herself.
Okay.
Peter lied when he denied Christ.
3 times?
3 times.
And the Lord's. So I realize can we all at least agree we don't use the story of Rahab to say, lying is completely fine? Like, are we all pretty much?
I'm not saying, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think we can all absolutely. You don't take the story and say, well, I'm going to teach Taylor, come on, gather around now. We're going to have our nightly Bible study. And I want you to see, Taylor, from the story of Rahab, it's okay to lie. I mean, that's not how we use the story, right? It's something that has times of ignorance. God winks, that kind of thing. We don't certainly use the story to promote. Are you laughing at that's going to take Taylor? It's not. Right, where are you going to go, Matt?
I think you've said it before. The whole story of the Bible is full of people with lots of flaws, just like us. God uses them. It all ties together with the fact that God saves everyone when He sends Jesus.
That's right.
So that we could, have the remission of the sins that we commit. We got to be careful not to call evil
good. That's right.
That's the thing. You can justify a lie. You can justify treating somebody a certain way and say they deserved it, but it doesn't make what you did right.
That's right.
So when you do something wrong, you got to say, I did something wrong. I need forgiveness. And God gives the forgiveness through his son. And it's the big circle. It all ties together.
It actually, the lie is actually less of an issue for me than the prostitute side, right? We're shucking and jiving about, telling a lie to save men's lives. I mean, you don't even have to get that far. Just start out with.
She's got her own watering hole at her house.
Yeah, there's some Adulamites that have probably swung through. All right, y'all remember the Adulamites that we covered. I'm sure this is a regular watering hole for Adulamite type people. So I don't even have to worry about the lie. Here's the thing. Lie, prostitute or not, magnifies, in spite of that being who she is and what she's done, it magnifies the faith, does it not? Faith can come from anywhere. What perfect person is in this audience? Want to raise your hand? That's where it's like, but what gets credited? What gets seen? In spite of the sin that has obviously been a part of her life, how she made her living, what does God zone in on and gets credited for her? Faith. And faith, I'm just going to tell you, that's going to jive exactly where we're going with the sermon. It's not that God ever can look at us and sin not be in our lives. Like I said, I'm kind of jumping ahead to the sermon, but even people that are in this audience that have been Christians for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years possibly, any of you guys sinless yet? It's not that God ever can look at us and say, oh, you're sinless, but what he can look at and see, this is mine. This is a faithful child. Well, we're going to get more into that, but believe me, there'll be more. But that I just want to go ahead and just clarify that in a way that I can speak a little bit more freely. I don't think there's ever a point you reach that you're sinless. Abraham, long in the story. Rahab, in the story. I mean, all these people. Paul said, even Peter, the first gospel sermon guy. Barnabas has to call him out. You know what I mean? You got Paul and Barnabas split ways. There's sin in the camp even after the salvation. But it just I'm just going to stop here. I want to give us a wink nod. We'll probably come back to these if we study this story longer. But while you've got Rahab here and we've got her in her harlotry, I need to do a wink nod to two passages, two other readers. Tyler, can you read one? Can you read Hebrews 11, 30 and 31? Kevin, can you do James 2, 20 through 26? You don't necessarily have to go, and I'm not even necessarily going to talk about I need these. I just kind of want them out there. I want to get all the information out there and we can kind of whittle where we need to go. But while we're talking about her lie and her being a prostitute, I want to magnify something the scripture magnifies, because this lady, well, what are we studying right now? What is she part of? The genealogy of Christ, which there's sinners in part of, there's Manasseh's and, but she's there. But in a major way, this lady, warts and all, is magnified by New Testament authors. Tyler, we'll do yours first, Hebrews 11, 30 and 31.
By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient.
Does it even pull punches about what she was? His translation, by faith, the prostitute Rahab. Not just Rahab, like we could just wink, kind of like Uriah, Solomon, whose mother had been, Scripture doesn't pull the punches. Neither should we. We need to be real and honest about sin, and it's there. There's no sense in there's no sense in excusing it, or we're not going to praise it and glorify it, but it's there, and all its glory to be seen. So even in praising her, and what did she get praised for? The prophet, or the prostitute Rahab. What did she get? She welcomed the spies. She showed hospitality. And part of showing hospitality is, if you're at my house and someone comes to kill you at my house, guess what? If I'm over at your house having dinner and someone shows up to kill me, you can say, "Yep, here's Dan, come on." Or what do you want to do? You know what I mean? Well, hey, easy. All right. You know what? I don't want to cause anybody else to tell lies this morning, so I won't put anybody on the spot. But you're at my house and somebody comes looking for you, they got to come through me first. So she shows hospitality to these spies. Now there's a reason why, because of her faith. But the very next chapter of Hebrews talks about showing hospitality to strangers. And by doing so, some have entertained angels unaware. You know what I mean? So it's not the lie that gets praised. It's not her prostitution that gets praised. It's her welcoming the spies and her faith willing to do so. Where are we going to go, Mr. Tim? You had your hand up.
Somehow she knew what they were there to do.
That's right. And that's where we don't get all the details. Let's whittle on this a little bit. I don't think it would be a very good strategy to come in, spying out land and say, hey, this Rahab, we're here to spy out your city. You know what I mean? I don't know how that came up in discussion. I don't know how you would do that. And so the way that it reads to me, I might be wrong about this, they've come in and they're just staying there. And it's not uncommon for men to come in and stay. Maybe even just as, they don't have to be doing anything illicit. It might just be, this is a place you can get a bed tonight. They're there, but it gets found out, hey, there's two men that have come to spy. How do they know that? How do they know they've come to spy out? Unless they already know they're on their way. We don't know all that. The king sends a messenger to her, hey, we've heard there's some guys there, give them to us. And then the men actually show up to take them. And so between getting the message and the men showing up, she's already hidden them. We don't know what they've told. That's what somebody said. We don't know. How does she know that that's what they're there for? Possible, and maybe the possibility that they don't sleep with her. You know what I mean? Like that's not what they're there for. Well, what if you're not here for that? Why are you? We're not told all of those details. Kara, did you have your hand raised?
Well, verse 9, she tells him, I know the Lord has given you the land, and the terror of you is fallen on us.
Yeah, but how does she know that? Did she tell him that, who said it? God maybe he's planted that seed.
These are the first two Israelites the people of Jericho had ever met.
Okay.
How they knew they were Israelites.
Well, that's always the joke about the story. They were Israelites.
But if there's a huge camp of people on the other side of the Jordan, and people know about it, and two people came from that huge camp and are traveling towards Jericho.
And they're in the wall, like what?
So this was the first opportunity she had to tell somebody of what she's heard about, and that it's their God.
But she does that with them after she's already hidden them, right? That whole negotiation where she confesses her faith and we know God's done this is when she goes up on the roof and they've already been hidden under the flat. So this is where it magnifies her action to me. I don't know what she's known other than God's planted the seed or because she's heard about the story kind of where you're tracking at. But the act of faith to hide them has already happened before this conversation about, we're out of time, we're 5 minutes past time, but it's like, you're shucking, I don't want to stop, but man,
why do we have this story? We don't have all the spies stories. We don't have all the leading up to all the other battles. But God, through the Holy Spirit, decided that we needed to know about Rahab. And all I'll suggest to you is it doesn't seem that remarkable or as remarkable with 21st century eyes reading this story as it would have been in Moses' time. To read about the role of women.
A woman.
Being used.
And we didn't even get to Kevin's verse about what Tyler's kind of hints at it by she welcomed the spies. Kevin's verse slam dunks it. We'll end class with your reading, and then we'll let this marinate till we come together next Sunday. But now we've kind of done the backdrop to kind of give it. But we'll let James 2 kind of be the rubber stamp of today's class.
But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac, his son, on the altar? Do you see that faith was working together with his works, and by works faith was made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And he was called the friend of God. And you see then that a man is justified by works and not by faith only. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also.
Now, You had your hand raised. Was it to read that, or what were you going to say?
For me, this moment in time and her situation equates to New Testament us coming forward and being baptized. It was her moment of understanding that there is a God and he's fixing to be in control, and she flipped the page.
And I'm honoring him. I am choosing does she clearly choose God's side against her own nation? And kind of like, and the woman that follows after the genealogy of Jesus is the one that says, my people shall be your people, or your people shall be my people, and your God, is Rahab making that same statement? Your God will be my God. And so there's a little bit of, I must obey God rather than men. This is where that whole lie thing, I obey God rather, to protect these men is the more righteous thing to do. And we'll let that marinate. We're past time, whatever, got people coming in, but kind of let some of these passages rattle around in here. It's good. It's good. It's good. Do we need to be in a hurry?